It's Tuesday night. And you know what that means, guys? It's That's Cool Drink Night. Um, the day after Christmas special. It's gonna be our like hangover special, we'll call it. And I've got a special beer. I've got Mango Cart. Stefan Rossi from Ace Racing Engines actually introduced me to this, so got a little Mango Cart for the evening, which is it's great. If you've never had it, you should try it. That said, welcome everybody. Episode 29. Are you kidding me? This is great, you guys. How much fun is that? Ed Hohenberg, welcome back. Merry holidays to you as well. You're one that I'm going to have to talk to about having on here very soon. Neil Sabo from Bang Shift. He's part of the live stream kind of crew and everything over there at Bang Shift. So love having you guys on pretty much every week, and that is super awesome. But guys, this one is going to be very, very cool. I got another brother combo here. I've got the Sheikh brothers. I got Azeem and Aleem here tonight on That's Cool Drink. And if you don't know, if you haven't been following them, they got a super cool second-gen Camaro that they've been cruising around. And I also kind of started digging into a little bit of their stuff, and they've got way more stuff than that. And like, these dudes are car dudes, and it's very cool, and it's going to be fun talking to these dudes. And we're going to have a great night tonight. So without further ado, the dudes. Bam!
Adam Dory.
What is going down, you guys?
Not much. Just catching up on a little bit of work after Christmas, and just here in the garage. Actually, I'm wrapping up the transmission rebuild, so that's been a never-ending saga for us this past year. But
again, I was going to say again.
yeah. But it's kind of funny because during race week 2.0, about 2.5 months ago, I borrowed from Matt Frost a direct drum from his personal Turbo 400 that was in that, and that's what got us through the rest of the event. And I had shipped it out last week, so he got it about 2 or 3 hours ago. So I finally got it back in his hands. So that's kind of like check that off the list, and now just working on assembling that one now. So
heck yes, man, and we will get to that. I have photos of that somewhere. I hope, but I certainly did at one point. But guys, like, thank you so much for joining me. And like I was kind of telling you beforehand, this has kind of turned into a little bit of a historical kind of view of you guys and why you're car guys and why you do what you do, kind of thing. So, of the brothers, which of you is the older?
I'm actually the older.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. What am I, like 3 years older than you, Azeem? I think I'm 3 years older.
Literally 3 years older. Yeah, we're both February kids, but 3 years on the dot.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So are you to blame, Aleem, for this like nonsense with your brother here?
I think so. I mean, to some extent, yeah. I mean, we'll dig into it more in a little bit, but yeah, I think what started out as what would be cool has now turned into what we do now.
Yeah,
super cool, dude.
Yeah,
I still remember the day we're both at work, and he calls me up and he's like, "Hey, Drag Week! It's they're doing Drag Week this year. Guess where it's at?" I'm like, "Where?" He's like, "Oh, it's going through Maryland," and I'm like, "Okay, this is going to be an interesting summer." So that was 2019. So since then, we've really been hardcore on the drag and drive stuff. But even before that, it was a whole lot of shenanigans, and it's mostly his fault.
Yeah.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
cool. And I didn't, again, digging through your kind of your social media history and whatnot, I didn't know you guys did Drag Week. And I think this is actually 21 or something like that.
19. That was 19.
Is that 19? So both of you guys did it in 19 with both cars?
That was our first event. That was our first event, and that was a big deal for us. We actually had no way to get the cars there besides driving them. So we drove them to Drag Week, completed Drag Week, drove them home. So that was our first and pretty big event for us.
Yeah. And we literally, I think with my car, it was a shell about 6 or 7 months prior. And basically he assembled the whole thing. He said go take your paycheck, go buy these parts, and he put them on. So there's probably pictures on Facebook of us like doing the body work and slowly working through it. And I think we got it started about 2.5 weeks. There you go. That's an old one. That's probably 2015.
That was the week you got it.
That was the day after we got it.
It was a day after we got it. Yeah.
Sorry, it was a day or a week after.
Yeah.
But that was the initial tear down, and we were like, "Oh, this thing is it's Swiss cheese." Yeah. So it was a lot of this is before I had my house, so I was working on my dad's gravel floor, and just every other weekend we'd go over there, start messing with it, and yeah, I mean, we got the car started 2 to 3 weeks before drag week, took it to the drag strip where I made my first passes at the age of
strip.
Ever.
Yeah.
It was a week before drag week. It probably had 20, 30 miles on it.
Wow.
And we just hit the road. So,
and we put nitrous on it.
Oh, nice. So you went on 19 and with 2 completely different cars. Like, these don't share parts or nothing like that. And we'll dig into the Fox in a little bit, but it's a turbo 4-cylinder SVO motor, right?
Yeah, mostly. Yeah. It's a 4-banger, and it still is a 4-banger, which is pretty much why you haven't seen it at any other Dragon drive.
I mean, you can make those pretty sporty, but I mean, you got to lean on them pretty hard.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's keeping head gaskets in that thing. It's not easy, and just getting the combination right of parts to make the thing live is just so much harder. I look at what Azeem did with the LS, and I'm just like, why am I still playing with this 4-cylinder? So
it's crazy. Yeah. It's like cheating. I call it.
It is.
And honestly, it's like so I announced for the Mod Nationals. So all overhead cam forward stuff, and I'm wearing the Mod Motor Mustang hat tonight because I know you've got a Coyote, Aleem. So that you just got rolling, which is great. So very cool. But I call it the cheating code because these guys buy GT500s, put 4 things on them, and they trap like 165.
Yep.
And it's insane, man, because I came from old school, small block, like Gen 1 stuff. And the thing would barely idle. It ran like total dog shit. And it ran 1350.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, this thing is sweet.
Yeah. It's got that hog ass cam.
Yeah, exactly. Michael Narks wants to know if it's a 2.3 Lima.
It is a 2.3 Lima, but it is not a 2.3 block. So we used a block from a Ranger. So it's a 2.5 liter OBD2 block. Which, we got rid of the distributor, which made it eating up distributors not an issue, and just gave us a little bit more displacement.
Cool. Yeah. So it's a 2.5. The bore is different in it, I assume.
I think it's more of the stroke. I think the bore is the same. The bore is the same. The stroke is different, but the top end is all 2.3. So
got it.
It's a heavily ported 2-valve 2.3 head single overhead cam, solid lifter head, I've got parts on it that don't necessarily scream performance, but means I don't have to work on it so much. So
exactly.
Azeem and I were both shocked at drag week. It made a 10-second pass at drag week, and we both were just shocked.
And stick shift car.
Yeah. It's a stick. It's got a face-plated TKO 600 in it. So
sweet.
I love the thing. And it's in pieces right now. I hope to get it together, before the summer, before the tracks open. We'll see what happens. If it's reliable, then maybe we'll do something with it. But if it's not, it's not leaving the driveway.
I hear you.
It's literally behind those doors right there.
Yep.
Nice. Just chilling right there.
Yep.
Nice. So back us way up, like way up. When and we'll start with Aleem again. You're the older brother. When did you realize, like, dude, I'm a car guy, and like I'm gonna be poor as hell for the rest of my life? Like, what kind of time frame? What did you have? What talk us kind of through that, like, first, like, soiree into like idiocy, and then Azeem, I'll talk to you next, as I assume that you're kind of following in Big Brother's footsteps with that.
Yeah.
Well, I'll rewind it actually a little bit further than that. I want to say it probably started for us collectively when our dad came home with a brand new 95 Z28 Camaro.
Hell yes. Is
that
it right there?
That's not it. My dad wrecked the one he had, but Azeem and I basically recreated the one that my dad had. So it is down to, the wheels, interior, everything what my dad had. And that is what got Azeem and I hooked on cars.
Hell
my
yeah.
dad was a car guy, but he picked up that Camaro new in '95 and, started with the day 2 mods.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Next thing we're in there and he's doing the, try and grab the dash while we're rowing gears, and
Right.
and he's just slamming us in the seat, and I think we were hooked.
And that's a LT1 T56, right?
Yep.
Like as God intended.
Yep. T-tops. I mean, it was a car,
Right.
Back then.
In '95, if you've got that car, that's pretty much just you'd lay your dick on the table.
It was
if you've got a Corvette, then you beat this. But other than that, like, this is it.
Yeah, it was a big deal back then, and it was beautiful. But so we played around with that until my dad had an accident with that around 01. But since then, though, from the beginning, though, we've always been a family that's fixed our own vehicles,
Yep.
And so that kind of gave us, even I had the experience on just doing general maintenance and just typical things you got to do, but it then around 2007, 2008, my best friend from kindergarten, he was going off to the Air Force and he had a 93 4-cylinder Fox body Mustang that he couldn't sell. His wife tried to sell it at the time. They took it to CarMax. They were going to give him $50 for it.
Nice.
And he goes, "Hey man, it's just sitting up there at our other buddy's shop." He's like, "You want it? If you want it, just take it." And that's what really started it for Azeem and I, because after that, our buddy Sean, whose parents owned the shop that we were using at night, he was like, "Hey man, I was going through the junkyard the other day, and I think I saw a turbo kit that will fit that 4-cylinder." And he was talking about an XR4 Ti, which is the same 2.3 4-cylinder Merker,
Yeah, those, totally. And those kind of same deal, like those with a jam, kind of, in the day, it was intercooled, turbocharged 4-cylinder.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And I had also started working. I got my first job, started working, and like shortly after, I think you, me, Azeem, and another buddy of ours, Ben, went to the junkyard and ripped a turbo and some forged pistons out of an XR4 Ti that had caught fire. It was a bad idea. It was a really bad idea. But
don't ever pull pistons from a car that's literally melted around the engine.
That might not be ideal.
No. But yeah, we spent quite a bit of time trying to turbo that 4-cylinder Fox for a couple of years, and I don't know, I think I got 2 or 3 of my own motors together for that thing that never lasted, and I think the last time it broke a piston, I decided to have somebody help me build a motor for it, and then got really serious with it. But that's where Azeem and I learned how to turbocharge, how to do like tuning, kind of what to do, what not to do.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Azeem.
Well, I was gonna say, in terms of the tuning part, I mean, we started with the stock ECU and quarter horse, and we went all the way through. I think we even did Mega Squirt at one point, right?
Yeah, I had a Stinger Performance first generation pimp on that thing for a while. Yeah, we just weren't very good. We were just learning, but we were just burning stuff up constantly, breaking stuff constantly.
And that's actually what I was going to ask is like, were you guys using like the tweaker or whatever? Like,
I tried to, I honestly was not able to get anything tuned. I wasn't able to do any tuning with anything other than a Mega Squirt pimp that happened. I couldn't figure out the other stuff.
Totally. The early versions of those factory ECU, like tuning, that like proms and stuff were just so bad.
Yeah,
just wizardry.
Well, yeah, I mean, you might just burn the freaking prom thing out, and then the thing's a freaking doorstop, and the Mega Squirt stuff really changed the game, especially in that Fox Mustang market, because those guys pretty much had like the bolt-on set, like you could do that with that like tweaker or whatever the heck stuff, like a nice off-the-shelf cam, whatever. But like, man, if you started getting boost and weird stuff that wasn't this, you're in bad shape. So yeah, Mega Squirt was a cool move with that. But
yeah, and then I ditched the Mega Squirt around the time that I had paid a shop to build me a motor because now I started started making more money. So it was like, what do? You start pouring more money into the car.
That's exactly it. And then you've got a $30,000, $5,000 car.
Exactly. You like, take it to the grave.
Yeah, exactly. At some point, these are going to even out. And if that's in 125 years, then so be it.
Who's laughing now?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, God. Yeah, but I mean, we switched to around that time that I had somebody, it was in 2015, they started having a shop build me a motor. Azeem and I then got serious with the Fox. And I mean, we ripped everything out of the car put components in there that were, the goal at that time was just 500 horses, So yeah, we started building the car for that. And that kind of, that was where we were really starting to learn how to do this stuff. And so when Azeem got his car and wanted to go to the turbo game, throw an LS in it or whatever, like there wasn't really a whole much of a learning curve. It was just different parts. Yeah, I mean, we got that car done, and we eventually got the Fox on E85, and it was around 24 pounds of boost, 25 pounds of boost. It made at the tire 442 horses, 471 pound-feet of torque.
Man, that's styling.
Yeah, so
I mean, people are like, well, but it's a 2.3 liter. It's a little.
Yeah, we were over 100 horses per cylinder.
Right. Which
so,
is, I mean, that's sporty when you consider like a pretty quick Honda makes like 350 horsepower. So, I mean, you're making 100 more than that, and it's rear wheel drive, and it's stick shift. So, I mean, it's gangster. Let's go.
Yeah. Still had a hard time keeping head gaskets in the thing. It was just, it's picky. It was picky. But we was able to make it through drag week in 19. And then after that, I basically parked the car because as a lot of my friends know, I had a Corvette sitting in Azeem's backyard that needed to be reassembled. So that pretty much, that moved over. Yeah, there you go. That moved over to the primary project for the past couple of years. Because as you know, with like a car that you race, there's no end.
Right.
You're just going to keep dumping money into things.
Right. You're like, it's done. And it's like for 3 weeks.
Exactly. Till you break it.
But you either break it or you get bored with what you thought was an unattainable horsepower number 3 years ago when you started building it, and now you need more power.
Yep.
So everything needs to be redone.
Right. Unlike the Vet, though, the Vet had a finish. It had an end point.
Right. It's this. It's going to be a convertible Stingray, and I mean, that's going to be the car. And
And that's why now, when I have kind of gotten back to the Fox a little bit in the last like 6 months.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, because the vet's in storage, and I'm probably going to leave it there just because my bank account likes that.
Yeah, yeah, and your ticket book, like, yep. Yeah. So Azeem, like,
yeah.
So I mean, you guys, this kind of happened in the same time. Like, how a gentleman never asks and a lady never tells. But how old a guys are you?
I am 35.
You're going to be 35 in February.
There you go.
That gets harder, by the way, as you get older, is knowing how old you are. People ask me all the time, and I'm like, I'm between 40 and 50. I don't know yet, but I heard. So I'm old.
Yeah.
So 35, 32?
32 or 32, yeah. Yep.
Okay. All right. And so in 2015, I mean, you're like pups.
Yeah. I mean, I was like, 26? And then you were, like
23.
23.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I just started working full time in 2014. And I saved up a little bit of cash, and I was like, I want a project car, but a first gen is like quadruple the price of a second gen, and the second gens look pretty sexy. So I'm like, let's go look for a second gen. So I was able to find this second gen on Craigslist for about $4,000. It was complete, but it was Swiss cheese.
Right.
And we can go into that more, but yeah, I mean, my past basically started along with what Aleem was saying. I mean, as kids, we kind of kept the family fleet of vehicles running. I like to thank the good people at Chrysler and Plymouth, Mopar in general, for making such a terrible minivan.
Transmissions.
Yep.
Oh yeah, every component. We got so good at replacing CV axles on the Chrysler minivan, we could do it in about now.
Yeah.
So it was stuff like that, keeping that thing running up through college, and then just little stuff, working on our own, daily drivers. I might work on a friend's car, that kind of thing. And but once you get that big boy salary, it's like I can go buy a project car. So yeah, I got this in 2015. Started working at my dad's place, and we had my brother and Liam and I, we bought that black Camaro in 2013, and we had that in storage, and it was cool and all, and we had a blast with it, and we're driving it around and whatnot. But I got to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm kind of tired of having it in storage. So I ended up looking for houses, got a house in 2017. So really, I didn't buy a house for me. I bought it for that car. And then with this garage, it opened up a whole slew of just bad decisions. The first project we did in here was actually the Corvette. Like, before I had anything, any toolboxes, anything, we had the Corvette in here. He got a welder. I jammed Romex into the circuit, the panel down in the basement. We got his 220 hooked up, and he's welding on his frame, doing his thing. So
hell yes.
And we got pictures of that too somewhere. But we with this car started messing with 2015. I didn't get serious until 2019, and that's when basically we started working on it. He mostly did the work on it. I guess since it got up and running and painted and everything, I've been slowly just doing little things on it. And that's mostly the upgrades I do to the car usually are just, it's like, yeah, I want to go faster, but at the same time, it's like, I want to learn how to build a rear end. So like sick week 22 years ago, I guess the first sick week, for instance.
Right. Yep.
Actually, it was this past year, I think. That was the first time I ever like built the rear end from scratch. So I got like a housing, I did the ring and pinion, all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, cool, that worked. So, I mean, that's, just incremental upgrades, nothing too serious. Ashley, every time I tell her like, yeah, like 15 more mile an hour in the quarter mile, I need a parachute. And she's like, whoa, slow down a little bit. So yeah, I mean, but yeah, aside from this, just growing up, I just was his shadow for the most part. we do our, I was in high school, he was in college when we first got the Fox, and be the nighttime or evening would roll around, and it's like, hey, let's go up and tinker on it. We got X, Y, and Z to do. So
just knock a couple hours out or whatever, and
yeah. And it was at a buddy's place, so we would take the thing every night. We would move some stuff aside in the shop. We would roll it off the grass, up the driveway, into the shop, work on it with no heat, no air conditioning, get done, roll it back out, and that little berm on that, like that little lip on that garage door floor.
Right at the garage. Yep. Exactly.
It's getting heavier every time.
Yep. And you would think that you would have enough to get up over it, and it would just barely, and then roll backward, and you're like, never mind, put it back in the. Okay, fine. We'll try one more time.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it all started really with the Fox, I think, in terms of the performance aspect of things. Then I got this, and I've toyed about getting other cars, but there are other projects I need to take care of, like the house, for instance. So I'm like, that Tri-5 Chevy I really want with like a 2J in it. That's not happening. That first gen, Camaro, that's not really happening for right now. So yeah,
Aleem's goal was 500 horsepower. Did you have an initial goal with the Camaro?
Not really. I think it was just our original goal was just to get the car running and driving.
Well, just to go to drag week in 19. That was the goal,
Yeah.
Just go.
Yep. So, and every year I have little micro goals I want to do. Like 1 year it was, okay, I want to put a 6-liter LS in it because I had a 4.8. So I put the 6-liter in it. I built the 4L80 from scratch. I used Jake's Performance Stage 2 kit and all of his instructions. I built the 4L80. So that was like a goal I did for 1 year. And so just every year it's something else. Like 2 years ago, I'm like, hey, let's throw some turbos on it. So I bought a TIG welder, and I started just learning how to TIG steel, and I just started fabricating a turbo kit and using obviously the knowledge that we got from the Fox. Just kind of threw this together, that and Slapping Mechanics and all the other internet sources. But even now, I don't have a goal for it. It's just, let me go try to do something and see if I can make it work. So,
well, that and just bulletproofing things.
Right.
Because of the whole drag and drive.
Exactly, especially the drag and drive stuff. Like you gotta make it stronger. I mean, faster is great, but reliable is better.
Yeah, I think that was half the reason you put a 9-inch in it. Because that kept killing 10 bolts.
We were on borrowed time with that 10 bolt. Every time I put 2 10 bolts in it, and after every event, it was howling and whining, and it was just not happy.
The limited slip wasn't limited slipping.
Right.
No, it had fused the cross pin into the carrier.
Perfect.
Because but yeah, like we started bulletproofing it. So we did the 9-inch. I wanted overdrive. So as much as I'm all about that turbo 400 life, I'm like, I did a turbo 350 in 2019 with a 411 rear gear. So on the highway, it was screaming at 4,000 RPM. So I'm like, nah, I'm over that. So that's why I went with the 4L80. I dropped the rear gear.
Basically a 400. I mean,
basically, yeah.
Basically.
I mean, yeah. I mean, seriously, a lot of it is. And that's what actually saved our asses when we had to go rebuild it at Matt's shop. So, but yeah, I mean, there's little things. I built my own cage for it. So I got one of those JD Squared tube benders, and then Ashley and I watched videos, and we put a cage in it. It got certed this past spring. I think it was this past spring I got it certed, which was kind of cool because the guy doing the chassis cert was actually kind of impressed with hey, I got it done right the first time, and I didn't have to come back and get it, I didn't miss a bar or I didn't miss a little gusset or something. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, which I think is honestly, I think that happens a lot. I think a ton of people forget a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
Especially when they do their first one. So
yeah.
That's very cool. I have that. I have that picture. I've got a picture of Ashley standing next to your bender.
There we go. Yep. Yeah, that was I had converted that tube bender to be hydraulic, but I still needed someone to go hold the 21-foot stick while I went and started the first set of cuts.
Right.
So
right.
I dragged her out there, and it's funny because she's actually wearing, I think, 2020 Race Week 2.0 shirt.
2020 Race Week shirt. Yeah. The one with the dragster on the back, and he's flipping the bird. That's one of the best ones. And here's for some reason these didn't come through in the first one, but here's you guys doing transmission stuff.
Oh yeah, that was fun.
That's been the theme of this year. It's been transmissions.
Yeah, and actually that time I don't even think it was a transmission. We had actually broken the converter, so the converter was toast, and we weren't sure what was going on. So we had a buddy who happened to live up in Jersey, and he's like, day one of Midwest, I'm having issues, and he's packing up to go home because he was having some issues on day one, and he's like, I got a 4L80 sitting in the shop. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, I got a 4L80 Circle D converter. It's all sitting there. And one of our friends, Mike Mayone, he actually was the one who owned that transmission, and he was like, I don't give a shit, go take it. So we drove up there, threw it on the lift. Aleem and I jammed the transmission out, threw the new one in.
I actually sat in a chair. All of our buddies kind of helped out a bit. I was spent.
You're done. The smart one.
It was hot. Midwest Drags was hot. And by the time we got to our buddy Joe's shop,
it was Joe. Yeah.
Joe's shop. Like I was cooked, but it was nice to have just more friends we've met only through Drag and Drive, who were ready to help us out, Yeah, it's amazing.
And Ed Hohenberg really makes the correct response, and that's when you break torque converters, you should put a clutch in it. And that's just how it goes.
That might be a 2025 goal.
I support this idea. I love it. I mean, I'm a stick dude, so I dig on that.
Yeah.
Let's back up. I want to hear, and I think this sounds like an Aleem question. Where did you hear about Drag Week? Why did you decide to do Drag Week? How did you talk Azeem into finishing a car that was in pieces and Swiss cheese before Drag Week?
Well, so I think the first time I heard about Drag Week was, believe it or not, from one of the Roadkill episodes.
Okay.
It was one of their very early, I think one of their first 5 episodes or something like that, where they were, it was about Drag Week that year. I don't remember what year it was.
I think I know the exact one. They got the wagon and they drove it to Drag Week, I think.
No, this was earlier than that.
Earlier than that. This is where Mike Milligan was riding with Jeff Lutz.
Okay,
for a while.
It's way early.
It was way early. That was the first time I had heard about Drag Week, because I didn't know I had heard about Drag Week before that. And then that was around the time that we were getting crazy into the turbocharging the Fox stuff and started getting into the drag racing stuff, watching drag racing, and then started watching the live feed of Drag Week every year, and then it was in 2018. It was always something that I wanted to do. I knew that I wasn't going to ever be really competitive. You got to have a lot of money, all that kind of stuff. But it was
it's cubic dollars.
Yeah, but it was just just to go and do it once, because at least back then, when you saw a car online posted up that had that Drag Week banner at the top, that was a big deal. Right. It was a big deal to complete Drag Week, and I was like, that'd be really cool if we could somehow do it with this 4-cylinder. So in 18. They announced the tracks. We're in Maryland, and the tracks were all, it was Mid-Atlantic, area.
Yeah, and typically they're in the Midwest, so I mean it's.
Yep, I was blown away because I think that was the first time they had come over to this side.
Right.
Like as you said, I called him up and I was like, we're doing Drag Week, and his car was just a shell. It was a mess. You had done a lot of the floor in that car though.
I think had
done all the sheet metal.
All the sheet metal was done. It was just
Yeah.
it was a clean shell, basically.
Yeah, it was just
kind
a rolling
of
shell.
this.
That was before that, actually. That was after we painted it. But there's
Right. But
actually
yeah.
there was a
But
picture
basically, I
before.
mean, it's a rolling
Yeah.
car.
Yeah. But that picture there, we had still put, I think, new fenders on it, door skins, stuff like that. But it was like
The door
May.
skins, yeah.
It was May, June, that his car, hadn't been touched in a couple of years, and it was like, hey man, clock's ticking,
Right, drag weeks like typically around Labor Day weekend or
September.
the weekend after. So
Yeah, first week of
September.
September, and I had started working on the Fox. Honestly, like I think it was a couple of weeks after they announced the tracks after an 18.
Okay.
I was like, I got to start now, and I had on my car, I had a new rear end built. I can't remember. I think I actually faceplated the TKO, and had to actually send my motor back because I had killed the thrust bearing, so it needed a refresh. And while I was waiting for my motor to come back, Azeem was finally like, okay, I've got the time and money. Let's start working on his car,
Hell yeah.
and I mean, that was, I think, that was an intense summer for us. I mean, I'm typically around 180 pounds. I mean, I lost 30 pounds. We were barely eating. We were barely sleeping. We were spending money like crazy, know. I mean, and like he said, we got his car. Yeah, we got his car, ready to go a week or two, before we had to leave. And even on the way down there, had a couple of issues with his car because that was like the farthest we'd ever driven it.
Yeah.
But
by the time we got,
you had to drive them there. You didn't have any other way to get them there. So
yep. Yeah.
By the time we got to the hotel, all 3 torque converter bolts had fallen out of my car.
Perfect.
So we coasted it into the hotel parking lot, and then I got his Fox, and we went to Lowe's, got some more bolts, Loctited the crap out of them, stuck them in there, and that was that. So
yeah,
that was our yeah.
Yeah, it was a good thing we left a little early because his car was falling apart on the way.
Right.
Yeah, it was.
I did learn if you have a powder coated flex plate, grind that powder coat off, and it'll help the bolt grab on the actual metal.
I think you had a flex plate that wasn't threaded, if I remember correctly.
The
holes.
It was bolts that went into the the converter was threaded itself.
Yeah, there were
through
no
the flex plate. Yeah, there was no nuts or anything. So it went into the converter. So when I got a different converter, I ended up using those crush style nuts, Loctite, and I've never had an issue since then.
Nice.
Yeah. So, but I mean, and in 2019, since that was our first event, everybody says, just try to finish the event. So, I mean, I think the name of the game for us back then was one and dones mostly. I'll be honest, my Fox had only made at the drag strip, I think it was 5 or 6 runs before drag week. But it was enough to get it dialed in, and the car was pretty much an 11.0 car the whole week. It was that was why we did drag week.
Yeah. Hell yeah. And like, I mean, yes, you had 5 or 6 passes, but keep in mind it's a stick car, right? It's a face-plated transmission, which, I mean, I would imagine you hadn't just driven on the road much before then. And if you don't know, it's not synchronized anymore. So if you need to upshift, so 4 to 3, 3 to 2, now you have to rev match that stuff. And it's like driving a tractor.
Yep.
It's kind of a different thing. It's great for racing. 1, 2 to 2 to 3 to 3 to 4 is, I mean, that stuff's insane. But the whole rest of the driving portion of that, and I've only done it in my car with a Roots Blower 4.8, and it made 525 foot-pounds at like 2,500 RPM. So you could drive it in whatever gear you were in, and not really need to change gears very much. It had power everywhere, but in a high winding turbo 4-cylinder, that's a whole different thing.
Yeah, I mean, without boost, I mean, you got like 60 foot-pounds of torque off the line or something. You got like nothing. So yeah, it gets annoying at times, and this next time this car goes together here pretty soon is going to be the last hurrah for this 2.3. I'm going to be done with it after that. But yeah, stick car, and I actually built that TKO as well, because of, and other people probably know this as well. Like, you can have Liberty, do the faceplate for you. You can send the whole trans to them, but I had called them up, and the time frame that they were telling me just wasn't feasible. They were like, it's much faster if you just rip it apart yourself and send us, second, third, and fourth, and send it back to you. Never done it before. So it was. 2019's drag week for both of us was very stressful. I mean, for me, insanely stressful, because I was just like, I don't have enough miles on this or his car. I don't know when it's going to break down. Our part of our family has no idea we're even there doing it.
Right.
I'm just like, how the hell are we going to get home? How are we going to explain this to people?
Right. If we break down on the road, what the hell are we going to do? And we're close to home, but we're not that damn close to home. I mean,
and we didn't know anybody else. It was just Azeem and I and my co-driver at the time. Azeem did it himself. He was by himself in the car, but I had my co-driver. That was it. We didn't know anybody else. I mean, that was, I think, the farthest either of us had driven our cars away from home, and then to race it, an entire week and then make it back home. I'll never forget coming home, backing in a parking spot and shutting it off. I just sat there for a couple of minutes, and I was just like, "Holy shit, we did it!"
Right. And Ed Hohenberg says it right. It's Liberty Transmissions and Storage. I shipped them my transmission. And they told me, it's probably, and we're, it was off season, so I'm sure they were busy. But I think they told me 12 weeks. And it was like, it took them like 40 weeks to get my transmission back to me.
Oh, you sent the whole.
I just don't want to break it because I don't want to have to send it back to them.
Right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I had taken the TKO apart in January, I think it was, and sent them everything, and I got everything back. I think it was 3 or 4 months later. Yeah. I just because they told me how backed up they were. I was like, it was going to be a miracle to get the cars done in time. So any way I could cut the time it took to put the stuff back together down, we went with that.
Hell yeah. Now, Azeem, you have had no co-pilot. You've had your significant other as a co-pilot.
Yep.
And your brother as a co-pilot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's wild. Like, that's a big swing. And even the first one with no co-pilot, at least you had Aleem and his co-pilot to kind of follow and stuff like that. But still, it's a whole different thing alone. But
yeah.
What do you think? Bringing your brother, who's done these, has driven these, but how does he work as a co-pilot, as a navigator? Because I'm here to tell you, I suck at it. Stevie's a way better navigator than I am. And then B, what's it like going with your person?
Well, I will say when it comes to navigation, I probably have the best co-pilot for that. I mean, we get whatever the directions are. Sometimes if it's drag week, you get a link. So, I mean, Aleem's on it every time. Even if it's at race week, a lot of times, they'll just give you the turn by turns, but we still throw it in the iPad and get that hooked up on the dash. And so I'll be driving along like, when's the next turn? 5 miles? Okay. 10 seconds later, when's the next turn? And so he's always on it. So
I'm totally that guy. Stevie will tell you.
Yeah.
She'll tell me and I'll be driving and I'm like, read me the last 4 things you just said.
Yeah. So, I mean, the navigation is a critical component of the co-driver role, but I love going with Ashley because it's fun. You're kind of roughing it with her and you're kind of testing each other a little bit. But with Aleem in the co-pilot seat, I also got my tuner sitting there working on the car. So like we'll be driving along and it's like, hey, the firewall's getting really hot. What the hell's going on? So he'll pull up. Yeah, there's Ashley. I think that was the first sick week.
Yep,
so,
I think that's right.
Good picture.
Yeah, she's actually going to go with me this February. Aleem's going to sit this one. Aleem's going to sit this one out, save a few bucks. Ashley's going to come with me. We're going to do that, and then I'll wrangle Aleem back in for another maybe summer or fall event.
Cool.
But yeah, I mean, Aleem on the laptop. We'll be driving along, and the firewall is getting like absurdly hot. He'll take his little temperature gun, mic the firewall, and it's like, dude, that's getting like 150 degrees or something. And he pulls up the laptop, and he's like, oh yeah, your O2 is dead. Let me turn off closed loop. Let me
right.
Car's running. So it's that kind of stuff. If it wasn't for him, that O2 would have been wigging out the whole way, and I would have just kept driving. So from that perspective, it's like, yeah, Ashley's fun, but having someone who keeps the car running is just amazing.
All I'm trying to do is prevent long nights.
Yeah.
You know, if you can keep the car together by catching something early, it makes all the difference. You can get some sleep.
Well, and especially drag week and to a lesser extent sick week with the morning runs and then you're driving typically at night. So
yeah.
You know, you're going to be driving the thing at night. So if it's running and it's good and you avoid those problems beforehand, then you're not laying underneath it trying to figure out what the hell's going on at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Typically.
Yeah.
But so that does kind of lead me into a few of my questions. But like, what are your guys' next plans? What are you guys doing for your next like drag and drive type event or car, or what do you guys kind of have coming up in the future for your programs?
So for me, at least, it's like it's a little tricky because on the one hand, it's like, you know, I want to save a little bit of money, maybe pay down that mortgage a little bit. On the other hand, it's like life is short, get out there. So I'm kind of doing a fine line of both right now, but I think we're definitely doing sick week, Ashley and I.
Cool.
I think the goal is just going to run. It's going to be either, I don't know yet. I would like to run the event and do 9s at every track.
Cool.
Even if it's like a 999.
Yeah, who cares?
Just 9s. That'd be a cool one. Even if it was bottom 10s, but I think if I did 9s, that's kind of like I'll aim here and then land here. So I think we're gonna do sick week. I haven't really looked into any of the other drag and drives for the year yet. I think I saw. Did they release the tracks for Race Week 10?
Yeah,
I think they did.
Yeah,
it was in the Oklahoma, Texas area again.
Yep, the typical Race Week one.
Yeah.
So Texas, Oklahoma, etc.
Yeah. So I'm not sure yet. I know Thomas and the whole sick crew. They're putting on. They have obviously their sick week, but they have these auxiliary events like they just did Death Week. I saw something about that Route 66 one coming up.
66, yeah.
Yeah. So there's stuff like that where it's like kind of cool, you know, trying something a little different. See, because a lot of what we do for Drag and Drive is also seeing the country. Totally. So like Aleem and I have an excuse to go out. Like that was the first time we ever went as far as the Rockies this past year.
That's some of the best reason to get out and do this is A, race at new racetracks, but B, there's so much byways. It's not highways. It's not interstates typically. And you end up in these weird little towns and like sick week, like I had boiled peanuts from a gas station. Like they don't sell fucking boiled peanuts in Colorado, pal. Like that ain't a thing. So like that was cool. Like I got the, you know, and you get like, especially sick week for me, like I have never driven through rural areas of Florida. I didn't even know that crap existed. Yeah, next thing you know, there's a car broke down and there's some guy there and he's got a shotgun and he's telling me there's a gator in the backyard. It's wacky stuff.
I feel like there's more. I feel like there's more to that story, but yeah, I mean it's Not sure yet what the ultimate plans are. At some point, I need to do upgrades on the car. Like it's got a stock bottom end right now. And when you're running 990s on a stock bottom end and a trans brake, I get a little concerned.
Yeah. No, I get you.
So it's, I mean, we'll play it by ear and I don't know, just figure it out.
Heck yeah. Aleem, what's your kind of plan? When do you, I know you mentioned you're kind of going to start working on the Fox again and maybe have a last hoorah, but what's your kind of plan for that? When are we going to see that back out?
Well, as everybody knows, I mean, going to do these events, they're not cheap, you know.
No, they're not.
And I think I'd like us to go and podium in some category, even if it's like 13 seconds or something like that, you know. With that said, though, like the last time Azeem and I had my Fox running, we actually put AC in the thing, you know, and we were like, you know what? It'd be pretty cool to do, you know, one of these drag and drives over the summer where it's real hot or whatever. Hopefully it's nearby, you know, East Coast, you know, whatever, and be able to do it in style. And you know, maybe even, you know, the car was a bottom 11-second car before. I'm fine with that, you know, but
that's a quick street car, man.
Yeah, but you know, going to one of these events though with a ton of practice and you know, before we go, you know, I don't, especially with my combination, you're running everything at the limit. And you don't really know how many times you're going to be able to make a pass before something breaks, you know, and I know I'll personally be way more relaxed and less stressful if I took a summer and just went to the local strip, you know, and just found out what are the limits of the car, how many passes can I get on things before things break, you know. Then maybe, you know, the following winter doing a refresh, and then that following year then doing an event somewhere, you know. Because I whether it's me or him, but I mean, like, I want us to come away with some hardware pretty soon.
Nice. Yeah, because you guys have done a bunch of the, I mean, 19, both of you.
Every year.
Yeah. I think you've been on at least something every year for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it'd be nice to, like you said, to kind of have a little competitive kind of run now, because like finishing them is cool, like it really is, and it really, really is. But like finishing a bunch of them in a row, and you're like, okay, now the stuff is good. I know it's sorted. Now let's start.
Yeah. I mean, we actually tried pretty hard at Colorado to try to be competitive. I mean, I think the hardest we ever tried to be prepared, actually.
Right.
I think Azeem and I, we prepped and tried to test the car weeks before we left. And I'm glad we actually did start as soon as we did, because we found a whole bunch of shit that we had to kinks we had to work out, you know.
It's funny how that works.
Yeah, you know, it just I don't know. It kind of just seems like we're always running out of time, but you know,
it's that's part of the problem with kind of how we've been doing things. It's like you got sick week in February, and then you get back from sick week, you don't even want to look at your car for a month.
Well, and then correct me if I'm wrong, is your race season small like ours? I mean, 7-8 months.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're not typically running in February.
Ooh.
So you've got to have a running car in February, which is not a normal thing for you know, for a northern person with a race car. Typically, you're doing all your work then. So, and then you get back in February, and then your tracks don't open again until May. Or something like that. And you're like, dude,
April, May,
March,
like
April, May. Like,
and then they close up around Thanksgiving.
Right.
Yeah, right around then. Yeah.
So I mean, 3 months may as well be a year at that point. Like, you might start a new bathroom remodel or something.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's you know, you do the sick week in February, you come back, you kind of recoup your finances a little bit, you get back into the garage, all your wounds have healed. And then you start working on the car for whatever mid-summer event, whether it's Race Week 1.0 or it's something like Midwest Drags. You get your stuff ready for then. It's like, okay, just in the nick of time, we're ready for that event. You do the event, You break everything again. You repeat the cycle, and you do that until September. You break it in September, then you come back. Now you're right back into it in February. So it's just like trying to, like, we did 3 events last year. We did the year prior, I think we did another 2 or 3 events. The year prior, we did like, I think 1 or 2. It's several of these. So at some point,
when you're doing those 3, I mean, you're talking the expense, the time, and the rebuild, like you said, like that's, you're bringing home a steaming pile of shit every time that you have to completely rebuild to get ready for the next one that's in 2 or 3 months. And, oh, by the way, it was expensive because you thrashed through it and went through a bunch of parts. It's been expensive in the off season because you did all that. And, oh, by the way, this one starts in like Kansas. So you got to tow out there now. So now you added $1,000 in fuel and hotels and shit, even getting there. Yep. So that's a new thing for me. I'm a South Dakota boy now. So I'm 1,000 miles from everything.
Right.
And how far away is your nearest track?
Currently we've got an 1/8 mile track in Sturgis, which is 30 minutes.
Okay.
Our closest 1/4 mile track is Julesburg, which is about 5 hours.
Ooh.
Okay.
So street testing.
Yeah, exactly. Or just 1/8 mile and just figure it out. I mean, you got a pretty good idea at 1/8 mile.
True.
As long as we've got that. The next is Marion, and it's 6 hours. And then currently Bandamere, where it currently sits, is our 3rd closest at about 6. If they do build a place out east, then that's going to make it a little north. That'll make it a little closer for us by whatever, an hour or something like that. Oh, Marion is 4 hours away. Yeah. So either way, so we've got a couple of options, but they're hours now. So
I gotcha.
A little different.
Yeah.
A little different. But I got to know. So you guys came from a GM family. Aleem, get ready for this. Azeem gets the 2nd Gen F body. Keeps a Chevy motor in it. You have a Fox body, and it's got a Ford motor. What happened?
Bad decisions, man. Bad decisions. I mean, it goes back to my buddy who was like, I saw a turbo in a junkyard that would fit. And now you've invested so much into a particular setup that I actually last year, I think, put together a spreadsheet to put an LS in it because I was like, I was at Sick Week and I saw John Mankia. He had torched the block and the head. He welded it up there and still went faster than I have in the Fox and completed the event. And I was like, I can't even look at my 2.3 wrong. It'll pop a head gasket.
Right.
You know, but I put together a spreadsheet and it was like, oh boy, like how much it was going to cost for me to do an LS swap. It was cheaper just to fix the 2.3, so, unfortunately it's still in the car right now, but Azeem and I told Azeem, I was like, when we get it back together and we go back to the drag strip, we're starting with 25 pounds and we're not coming home till there's a window on the side.
I like it. And you do have an S197 Mustang as well.
Yeah, that's my daily.
Okay.
That's my daily. I actually wanted a Camaro. And I remember when I was shopping back in 2013 for Camaros, I ended up going with a Mustang. 1, it looked better, but 2, just the cost. I think the equivalent Camaro was like easy 10 grand more.
Totally.
And I was just like, no. Not only that, I sat in it once and I was like, I can't see shit out of this thing.
Right. And honestly, those S197s that's a cool car.
It is. It is.
For bang for the buck and with the Coyote in it and stuff, like.
Except I lost compression in cylinder 8 at 112,000 miles. So that thing has been sitting for the past 2 years almost. Azeem and I just fixed it like a month or so ago. And that was expensive. Coyotes are not cheap.
That is the issue for sure. They are impressive and they make some really, really good power, especially if you put a lot of boost on them. But they are expensive.
Yeah.
If and when things go wrong.
Yeah, I mean, if I had bought a Camaro, I probably would still be fine, but it also doesn't help. I take these things to Redline every time I drive them, so it's partly my fault.
Well, that's how it works. Is that also a stick car?
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, and
Man.
I had lost fifth in the MT82 like 4 years ago or something, so it's actually got in it now a Magnum F swap, a T56.
Nice.
Yeah,
And that was of my persuasion.
Yeah, I couldn't. Yeah, I somebody sold me an MT82 for a 13 GT, and I went to go bolt it up, and was shocked to find out they sold me a V6 MT82.
Oh.
And it was like, I called Azeem and I was like, dude, you're not gonna believe it. I was like, it's not even close, not even close. And he was like, well, and I'm like, I can't find anybody who's got a 2011 MT82 because mine's a 2011. It was that GT, that Coyote was built in April of 2010, so it's an early Coyote car.
Super early, wow.
Yeah, really early. And Azeem was like, well, what about T56? I know you've talked about it, and just do it once, get it done. And I was like, well, I got his blessing, so I wrote that $6,500 check.
It's only money.
You'll make more, I guess.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, you could have LS swapped it then too.
I've actually learned after doing like motor swaps in different vehicles, like it's never going to get as good as when the OEM had put it together.
It'd cost you more than that $6,500 to put an LS in that for sure. So whatever, and there you go.
Yep.
But yeah, so I mean, it's fine, man. I mean, every family's got their closet, their closet Mustang guy, their closet Ford dude. That's fine. Like, that's super cool. It's good for you.
Well, I mean, we don't discriminate. You know what I mean? I mean, I think
totally.
Azeem and I were looking at a Mopar not too long ago.
Yeah.
Was it a cool Mopar?
I'm still waiting on a barn find like 69 Charge to just show up somewhere in Maryland, and then we can just go snatch it.
Hell yeah!
But that's.
I mean, we'll drive anything cool. No,
and I mean, you do have the super cool C3.
Yep.
So I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. So
yeah,
I just thought it was funny when I was like, damn, these guys got a lot of GM products, but man, Aleem's got some Ford stuff, and good for you.
And actually, what's interesting is the Fox and the Corvette got both those cars for free.
Yeah.
Yeah, and technically the Corvette was given to both of us from a neighbor. So I just dumped my money into it to finish it.
So Azeem's like, hey, I'm here for half my Corvette.
Here you go.
It sat in the backyard, and I'm like, that'd be a cool car to fix one day. And that's where I left it.
Right. And Aleem was like, totally it would be.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sweet. So, guys, we're past our first hour, and I think we got thank you, guys. This has been super cool. I think we got a bunch of really cool background from you guys and kind of your history into this stuff. So, I'm going to hop into. I've got questions that I ask all of my guests, which is kind of a cool deal. So, I'll kind of leave these out for both of you guys because your experiences may vary. But I'll start doing that. If you're watching on the live stream, go ahead and pop up some questions in the comments, and we'll put those up on the screen, and we'll get those answered for you as well while we're going through these. But Azeem has maybe heard a couple of these because he's seen these, but Aleem has not. So this will be your first time. So I'm going to give Azeem the first question of each of these, and give Aleem a little bit of time to think about it because you may have heard of a couple of these, so you might kind of know what's coming. But so Azeem, what is the largest thrash that you've been a part of? And we talked about a bunch of these, so I'm sure it's going to be stuff we've already talked about.
Oh, the largest thrash. Honestly, putting the car together initially, that was a large thrash, but that was over several months. I think the most hardcore, toughest thrash we ever did was at 2.0 this year when we lost the transmission. And we were leaving Kearney. I went to go overtake someone, and I started to just accelerate into it, and it went right to Redline. And we had a 7-hour drive to Greeley and back out to.
I think it was even Nebraska. Yeah, I think it was even more than that. I mean, it was like a 10 or 12-hour drive. It was 420 something miles.
Yeah. It was
Yeah,
fun.
and we were running the car between 30 and 50 miles an hour because if I tried to lean into it past 50, 60 miles an hour, it would just go red line. So we babied the car all the way there. And then, the stress of, all right, we drove 28 hours to get out here to do this event. The goal is to finish. What the hell are we going to do to make it work? So, fortunately, we started in a Walmart parking lot changing valve body gaskets, left a trail of ATF on the ground, and I put it all back together, drove around the block, and it's like, still has an issue. So fortunately, I texted Matt in June, and I'm like, hey, we're going to stop by. Can we borrow your shop? And they're like, yeah, doors open. Go for it. And that is what started the hardest thrash, I think, because not only we had to source a transmission rebuild kit, we had to get the car there. We had Bandamere closing at, 9 o'clock, was 8 or 9 o'clock was when the staging lanes were calling it. And I think Matt and June's shop is like an hour from the track or something.
From there, yeah.
Yeah, so we're working our way backwards. We said, okay, staging lanes close at 9. It's an hour drive, so we got to leave here at 8. It's like 6 o'clock right now or 5 o'clock, so we pull the trans out. Thankfully, Jake Shoemake has really great videos on his Facebook and his YouTube because I've watched those things religiously. So it's like by the time we got it out, I'm like, Lean, hold the transmission. I jerked every component out of that thing all the way down to the center support. And I look at the drum and I'm like, this thing's toast. I'm ripping Matt Frost's personal Turbo 400 apart, pulling his drum out, putting it in my transmission, jamming it all back together. So it was just we've gone too far to fail, and that's what made it kind of the most epic thrash. And getting it done and getting to the staging lanes, it was afterwards. I made the pass, got back to the staging lanes, and it was just kind of like a moment.
Yeah. Okay.
And so that's when I knew. Yeah.
And I've actually got a Fred from 1320 to a little reel of your pass when you made it there, and I think you made it with 6 minutes to spare.
Yeah, something like that.
Or something, and So I'm going to throw this up, and I believe that we can hear. It's going to be tiny for y'all.
All right, we got the 11000, whatever you want to call it, Volvo, and then this Camaro just rolled in. They're literally closing staging lanes in 4 minutes. He just got in the lanes. He's about to make his first pass right now.
A little bit of trans fluid. That's okay.
Yeah, that thing had some trans fluid burning off of it for sure.
But yeah, man, that was super cool. That was a very thrashy sort of a day for you.
Yeah, I'd have to agree on that too. Yeah.
Same for you.
We got back to we got back to the hotel that night. It was deep sleep.
Oh hell yeah. That was a good thrash, whoever you are. Put your name up there. I'd love to give you some credit. Okay. Azeem, tell me about the one that got away. What car did you sell that you shouldn't have sold?
It's funny. In our family, we have a history of never selling anything. Nice. So honestly, everything we've bought, we just hold on to. I have yet to, collectively, I don't think we've sold any cars yet, have we?
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Well, you can't regret selling them if you don't sell them.
So I got an acre lot. And with no HOA, I can park a whole parking lot back there. So I'm never selling anything.
That's our plan. We're looking for exactly that. Like house is secondary to the shop.
Yeah.
Okay, so unlimited money. I just handed you a blank check. You're going to go to some drag and drive car or guy's house and buy his car, and it's going to be for sale. So any car of any drag and drive, what car are you taking home?
It's going to be, because I'm a fan of OG drag week cars, it's going to either be Jeff Lutz's 57 or Larry Larson's. Was it S10? Is that what that is?
His S10?
Nova.
Nova? Oh, he built the truck later. It was a Nova. It was a Nova. Yeah. It's either the Nova or Jeff Lutz's 57. It would probably be Lutz's 57. If I had to pick one car.
Hell yeah.
Yep.
And I'm kind of partial to Schroeder's C2 Corvette.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. That's a good one. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm getting feedback from somebody.
Azeem, put yourself on mute for a minute.
Yeah. Yeah, it's you.
It's you.
Yeah. Your mic is your boom mic is feeding into your headphones.
I think your sound's coming out of the speakers on the laptop.
It might be coming out of the speakers on the laptop. Did you unplug your? Yeah, it's still the same.
Yeah.
Dang. Yeah, fix it, will you? Yeah. So Schroeder's the early one, the early Corvette that he's got, and actually I think he's bringing that back to sick week.
I think
this year, because he just wrecked the new one, this last one.
Yeah, I don't know if they're gonna have the newer vet repaired.
The new vet, right? Yep. Well, I'm a definitely an OG sort of guy, but I'm a Larry Larson's Nova for sure.
Yep.
That's my jam. The
new
Corvette is rebuilt. Okay. Yeah. Good recovery by those guys. Okay. Aleem, or Azeem, are you working? Is it working?
Is it working now? How's the echo?
I think we're fine.
I think it's
okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's coming right out of the laptop, so we're good. Okay.
Yeah, whatever. It was your headphones.
Yeah.
Your fancy Madonna headphones screwed you up. So Azeem, what is your favorite racetrack that you've been to?
Oh. How do you not say Bandamere? That was the sole reason why we went 2-0 this past year, was because we wanted to make that Bandamere hit.
Yeah.
And after we made our passes, Aleem and I got some snacks. I don't know what it was. We got one of the vendors had some food. We sat at the very top of the grandstands and we just watched racing, and it was just phenomenal. So it's got to be Bandamere.
Hell yeah, and that's totally true, because it, like, where the concessions and stuff is, you walk out to the very top of the top of the grandstands, and the way it's built is just such a different thing from anything else. It's a very cool deal for sure.
Definitely.
Aleem? Bandamere's cool. It's got the view and all that, but I have a soft spot for VMP. Mm-hmm. Only because Virginia Motorsports Park, only because that was the first like NHRA track that we set foot on, raced at. And I'll never forget in the staging lanes, pulling around the corner and seeing, from the staging lanes into the burnout box all the way down the track, seeing that view and going, holy shit, I'm here. I can't believe we did it. I never thought I'd be doing this, and this is insane. I'll never, ever forget that. So I kind of have a soft spot for VMP.
And there's something to be said for that, too. Stevie, her big thing is Bandamere. It's big boy track. Up here, it's little tracks. They exist, but they're, it's little mom and pop tracks kind of thing. But you get to a big track, and it's like, oh, wait, like, John Force races here, and I get to race here.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yep.
That's a super cool thought. Like this exact lane, John Force has been standing in and drove down. Like that's, and I'm about to do the same thing. Like that's a very cool feeling with big ass tracks.
Yeah, standing in that archway, or sitting in that archway, getting ready to make a hit, and it just going, this is what it's about.
Hell yeah. I've got a couple more, so folks in the comments, if you have questions for Azeem or Aleem, throw them up there. We will get those thrown up, but go back to Azeem, trailer or no trailer for your drag and drive bliss.
We have never run a trailer. I would like to eventually, I think, just because when you really start going faster and faster, I don't want to say it's a necessity, but it's just to make your whole racing experience a little more successful. It's nice to have some spare parts, and we've done probably, I don't know, 8 to 10 events so far, I think, and none of them with the trailer. But the one thing that gets old is you get to the track, you're unloading, your jack stands, all your spare tires, or all your spare tools, and all that kind of crap.
Your whole
it's
life.
It's a yard sale. All your clothes, your boxers that you wore 3 days ago, you throw them out there. So doing that constant volley of parts gets a little annoying. But I think being able to just throw everything in the car and just drive it the way GM built it, 50 years ago, just throw everything in the trunk and just hit the open road. I kind of like that. So honestly, I might build like a hitch carrier off the back of the car so I could put my set of drag radials on it.
Right.
But trailer, I don't see it happening, at least for a couple of years.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think trailer either. I mean, my Fox is a hatchback, so I mean we can pack a ton in that thing, and we've done it, But I will say though, when we did race week in Colorado, we were carrying about 15 gallons of E85, 10 gallons in the car, I mean, in the back seat we had 5 gallons,
Right.
And so it's a little nervous, makes you a little nervous, you know what I mean? Carrying fuel in the car, you got 15 gallons with you, somebody rear-ends you, that's it.
Yeah, bad news.
That's it,
Yeah.
So, it'd be nice to have, like I said, at least a carrier, just because, getting into parking lots and stuff like that, backing it up, not having to deal with a trailer, but having a little carrier on the back that you can put stuff like gas, it's at least make me feel better.
No, I hear you. When you do that, load it a little heavier than you typically load it. It's a big arm, So by the time it gets the spring, it's, and a leaf spring is probably going to hold it better than a coil is, in my opinion. But I tried one of those with the Malibu, and I had it for 1 or 2 days, and I shit canned it. I went and got a U-Haul trailer, and I put it in the U-Haul trailer because I was like, this is stupid. But my car was already low, and it was it was just a mess. Not my favorite thing, but if you do try it, load it a little over, because you're going to end up with some more crap, it, and try it out.
And we may ditch his Monroe shocks for some air shocks, and
see,
just up them a little bit.
I'm here to tell you, Bill Armstrong did that. He had, I can't remember exactly what happened, but he was bottoming out his car with his trailer, and he went and got some air shocks, and he ran 2 or 3 days with that car with cheap $80 whatever Pep Boys air shocks, and I think it was only a 1,000th slower to 60-foot than his like high dollar 4-digit Mensers.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And he was just like, "Fuck." Well,
I mean, Aleem, correct me. I forgot what was the fastest 60-foot we did.
I want to say it was like a 1.2 or a 1.3 at drag week, your last drag week.
Yeah,
I think it was.
And that's with a set of Monroe autos and shocks. I don't know how we did it, but ever since then, it's just like I should probably put a set of like big boy shocks on it and like get to tuning. But at the same time, I'm like, I could just dump all that money right in the engine and just go faster. So
I have a suspicion though that was the last time your 4L80 was doing what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, probably.
Okay. So it's been funky since then.
Yeah,
fluid that pass was not good for it.
I put fancy shocks on my stuff, and it's super neat. Like, it's got a ton of adjustability, but I'm the guy that makes big sweeping changes. I'm like, it's not working. I'm gonna put 12 clicks in it like an idiot, and then I lose it and I ruin my program. So same deal. Take notes.
Yeah.
if you just decide to do that.
Yeah, I've had several people tell me I need to upgrade the suspension game, and I think for where we're at, if we can just bring down the 60-foot times, that'll get me into my 990s and 980s consistently. So that's definitely something I'm going to start looking into for at least this racing season, is to get a proper, anti-roll bar, because every time I launch the thing, it's always doing this.
Right.
But an anti-roll bar, proper set of rear shocks, actually figure out how to tune it all with the Caltrax and do that. So that's
real quick, Azeem, and I've got one more question. So if you're on the comments, go ahead and pop them up there if you want to know anything more. But we went through a ton of the setup in Aleem's motor. Tell us about where it currently sits with this setup. What is this? What in the hell does it do? What do you brag to us a little bit about it.
So Aleem and I went to LKQ, which is a national auto recycler chain. We went to one of their junkyards, and we pulled an LQ4 iron block. And basically, I re-ringed and bearinged it. I followed Richard Holdner's, his suggestions on ring gap and all that kind of stuff. And basically, it's a stock bottom end LQ4. Stock 317 head. It does have some BTR upgrades, trunnion upgrade. It's got some valve springs. It's got a stage 4 cam. But I ran that naturally aspirated, I think at 2.0 for a while, for like a year or two. And then 2 years ago, Ashley bought me a set of up and forward headers for my birthday. So it was, hey, go build a turbo kit. So those up and forwards were a birthday present. And, but yeah, now it's got a set of VS Racing 6673s on it. It runs, when we first started running it at the track, we were only putting like 5 pounds of boost to it. We're keeping it pretty conservative. And then recently, I think we were getting it up to around 13, 14. We might have touched 15 pounds at one point, but, we're running out E85 and
actually, you almost hit 17.
Ooh,
yeah.
17.
It was like 16.7.
Getting jiggy.
Yeah.
So that's like, that's, whatever. It's still in that world relatively mild, and 317 heads and stuff. That's still stock truck heads.
Based on, I have never put it on a dyno. It only has street miles on it with Aleem tuning it in the passenger seat. But based off of the drag racing calculators you find online, it's putting like 700 horses to the tire.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's for stock bottom end. I think that's where we'll keep it for a while until I actually put a rotating assembly in it.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, I saw one of the comments just pop up there. It's got, I was able to find an earlier model Jake's Performance D3 trans brake. So when I initially built the 4L80, it was just basically a stock 4L80 with no trans brake. It had a Jake's Stage 2 kit in it, and it worked out pretty well. We did a 10-0 pass with it, and it was all great and everything. But foot braking, it was kind of a pain in the ass because it was hard to hold it at the line.
Yeah, so, but that was your fastest 60-foot was a foot brake.
It was. But I think it was about 6 or 7 months ago on Facebook Marketplace, someone was selling a 4L80 trans brake, and that was the only thing in the description. And it didn't even have a picture of it. It had like a GM logo. And I messaged the guy. I'm like, which trans brake is this? And he's like, oh, it's a Jake's D3. And I'm like, is it for the earlier or later model 4L80s? And he's like, oh, it's the earlier one. I'm like, oh, damn. So that day, Ashley and I drove down, picked it up, and we jammed it in there. And Aleem and I got the trans brake working that weekend. So we started bumping in the driveway.
Nice.
But yeah, doing the trans brake stuff, it does take a lot of the uncertainty out of staging the car, which is nice. But yeah, I bought a Circle D converter for that 4L80 from a friend, from Joe Jennings. So it's got a Circle D converter, Jake's D3 in it. It's got an input shaft, but really it's just kind of your normal mods that you do to a 480, dual feed it, that kind of stuff. But the car as a whole is just it's a tool I'm using to learn how to build things. Like I said, I've never built the transmission before, so I built the transmission, I built the turbo kit, I built the rear end on it, I did the roll cage.
Yeah.
I could care less how fast I go, but as long as the stuff I do works, that's cool.
Yeah, hell yeah, that is cool. Drink.
Yeah, drink.
My last question, and I'll start with Azeem, and we'll finish with Aleem, and we'll call it a night. We're almost an hour and a half. This stuff goes quick, I tell you. It's a thing. But probably the most important question: what advice do you have for newbies?
Newbies doing drag and drive, or newbies getting into the car scene in general?
Your call. One or the other, or both.
So I'll start with the drag and drive stuff because I feel like it's easier, and I know this has been said a lot. I guess just go and try to finish. Just set that as your goal. Don't go there trying to. You can go there hoping to win a class, and I hope anybody who tries for it gets their win. But just go and just do your first event, have fun, meet people, build relationships, because there's a lot more to drag and drive than just making a pass and getting a number. It's all the other stuff around that. It's like I said, it's hanging out with people and building friendships. That's really a lot of times what we go for. So from that perspective, that's probably my only suggestion there. But with the car stuff in general, do whatever you think is cool. If you want to turbocharge a 4-cylinder Fox, go for it. You don't have to, you don't have to LS swap. You don't have to put your Outlaw front bumper and make it look like an X275 car. Do whatever you think is cool and have fun with it. Because as soon as you start chasing other people's idea of cool, then you sit back at the end of the day and go, I built this thing, but I'm not really into it. And then it just sits there.
Right.
So that's probably my 2 cents.
Nice. Hell yeah. I like that. And that's totally true too. Before we get over to Aleem, a lot of guys are like, drag and drive. That's totally cool. And they watch the live stream and they see the racing portion, but there's so much more. Like the racing portion is like that much. It's like nothing. Like the road portion, the checkpoints, the hotels, all of that crap is like there's just so much more to it than what meets the eye. And everyone and their mom can have a car that they can take down the racetrack on day one. But bringing it on this tour and doing this thing and making it through traffic and wildlife and crazy transmission problems and you name it, and making a pass then on day 5, it's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
So, Aleem, advice for newbies.
Before you can even go and do a drag and drive or even make it to the track, you got to build your car. All right. And I've seen this with quite a few friends. They underestimate what it takes to put a car together in terms of budget and time. So what a couple of my friends have noticed, I've mentioned it, and they were like, I think you were kind of right. They were like, whatever your budget is, double it.
I'd say triple
it, and however long you think it's going to take you to do it, double or triple that as well. Okay. And then schedule and plan out your build. You want to put twins on it, but you may not have time to get all that worked out, and if you're trying to go to one of these things, just go, you can, like Azeem has every year, just do a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Don't bite off more than you can chew trying to get a car together for your first event.
And I really like that too, like a ton. Just set your own little micro records. Do better than you did last year. Like you can chase that guy and you can go after that, the podium spot or whatever. But if you beat your own little goals, that stuff will come. It's like football. Like everyone wants to score touchdowns, but you got to get first downs to score touchdowns. So make those small goals, and then next thing you know, holy shit, we just finished 3rd, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, the most fun I think I've had at one of these events was a Rocky Mountain Race Week where I think we were in the 13-0 class and we missed the podium. I think we became
Yep.
fourth. You know, it was a 13-0 class, you know.
Yep.
And what was more fun then than now is the fact that Azeem's car didn't make a whole lot of power, so he could hot lap that thing.
Right.
That was fun. And I think that's where everybody kind of learned about us and his car. You know, there he is coming up there doing John Force burnouts again. You know what I mean? And just
Yep.
you know,
and as you guys know, those index classes are like fourth place. You were probably 13:05 or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah, it was really close, and it was the most fun I ever had.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Sweet, guys. Well, that's it. We got an hour and a half in. I'm through all my questions. We got everyone in our comments. And Dash, always a watcher. He's part of the Colorado G Bodies. One of my, like, a dude that I know personally, and he watches a bunch of these, and he's got his channel, and he watches and or listens while he works on his car. He's made Tuesday night his like car night, so works on his car, listens to That's Cool Drink, and he's not done a drag and drive yet, but he's got an El Camino and a Monte Carlo, I believe, or Cutlass, something like it. He'll hop in here, but he's going to bring him on one of those at some point. One of those, probably the El Camino. But
I gotta say, yeah, I feel like an El Camino is a perfect drag and drive car because you can put so much in the bed of that thing and just go for it.
Right, and it's still a G body. I mean, under it.
Yeah,
you know, it's still got all the same stuff. So it's Monte. Yeah, it's totally a Monte. So, but no, an El Camino is the jam. So Dash, thank you for tuning in again. I appreciate you, man. This is super cool, and it's cool for exactly like him sitting on the sidelines, and he really, really is interested in something like this. But I get to have all these dudes on that have done stuff like this, and he's like, "All right, like I'm in. Let's go. This is gonna be fun." But that said, guys, dude, Tuesday night, it's 10:30 out there, and I appreciate you guys hanging in there with me and rapping with me here on my little podcast.
I enjoyed it.
I'm glad to be here. Yeah.
Heck yeah. Azeem, I'll see you at Sick Week. I did get invited back for that, so I'll be down and get to hang out with Ashley again. So that's going to be cool.
Yeah.
And Aleem, I'll see you at some point. I'm sure we'll be our paths will cross.
Yep.
And I really hope to see that Fox body at some point. I'm super interested in those. And actually, like, I did a power tour in 1998. I did a long haul power tour, and I had a turbo 4-cylinder Toyota truck, and had a T3 62 millimeter turbo on it, and that thing ran pretty good. It would outrun like a 5-liter Fox body at the time, like a stock.
Okay, cool.
Stick truck,
yeah,
on like mud tires and stuff too. It was pretty sweet. But there was a dude on that power tour that had an SVO powered Pinto, and it ran, I think, in the 10 flat range or maybe 950 range or something like that for 98. And that was his big thing, was like, I can't get the computers to work right to make this thing really make power. And it's just, it's on the ragged edge. But I kind of fell in love with that combo. So looking forward to seeing yours at some point.
It's fun to an extent.
To an extent. Hell yeah. Well, guys, I'm going to throw you in the background. I'm going to say goodbye to everybody, and then I'll bring you up and do a goodbye for you after we're off the air. But
good.
Guys, thank you so much. I appreciate it again.
Yep.
Heck yeah. Dude, you guys, how cool was that? The Sheikh boys, man, I've had a blast talking with those guys, and really kind of became friends with Azeem, especially in 2020 on Race Week, I believe. And it's been really cool kind of watching them do their thing and get that second gen faster. And again, I want to see Aleem's Fox Mustang. So it's going to, really it's Corvette. Let's maybe do the Corvette. That might be more fun. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in on this deal. Don't forget, I am on all of your podcast outlets. So I do that through Blueberry, BLUBRRY. You can download from there. I do only have the first 3 episodes. I have the 4th one ready to go as soon as I get more bandwidth, I will get that one uploaded, and then we'll start kind of going from there. I'm going to make a decision. I may look at upping that and getting a bunch more of those up on that podcast platform. But you can download them from there, and then you can listen to them on road trips, on airplane trips, etc. It's also being simulcast on at least Apple, I believe, and I think it's a few other outlets in the sort of blast deal through Blueberry. But guys, thank you so much again for tuning in. Episode 29. Azeem and Aleem Sheikh was so much fun. I'm not going to do one next week. I actually am going to take a week off. I've got a week off for work, and I'm going to work on my Malibu. It's time, so I'm taking a week off. I'm going to get that thing rolling. The plan is to make that actually burn its own fuel next week, so I may be working on it Tuesday night. So nothing Tuesday night for next week, but I will see you guys in a couple of weeks. That said, thank you guys so much. Appreciate you all for tuning in. Make sure you share these along, because again, these things are super cool. An hour and a half, 2 hours with some of your the dudes that you get to hang out with a little bit, but 5-minute chunks. We get to sit down for an hour and a half and really dig in. And yes, Dash, the Malibu is making a comeback. The motor for that is 366 cubic inch LS2 base motor. It's got really nice ported dart heads, and it's got Crowler shaft rockers and the ability to be a solid roller. It's currently in hydraulic roller, but it's a big one. So that thing should run good, and it's got the face-plated 6-speed, so it's going to be a super duper fun, naturally aspirated stick car. But that said, guys, thank you so much. Episode 29, we are done.